The house still smelled like him, cedar and cigarette smoke. He swore he'd quit, but everything that made it his was gone. I stood in the kitchen with the drawers pulled open, sunlight falling flat across the counters, and found the watch wedged behind the silverware tray. Cracked face, the crystal split like a hair across noon. He used to wind it every morning at the table, telling me it would be mine someday, when I was old enough to take care of something that mattered. I turned it over twice before I understood why he'd left it. He hadn't. He'd simply forgotten it existed. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting on a bench outside the county courthouse, waiting for him to finish signing whatever he needed to sign before the trip. October cold, the kind that gets into your knees. I watched him walk toward the car where she was waiting. His new wife, her window already fogged from the kids breathing on the glass, and he stopped just long enough to say it. "You're old enough to figure it out." He didn't look at me when he said it. He was checking his phone for the flight time. Behind him, the youngest of her two kids pressed a handprint against the window, and I remember thinking, absurdly, that the print would still be there after they drove off, fading slow like a photograph left in the sun. I sat there for 4 hours, long enough for the cold to stop being uncomfortable and start being a kind of company. I called my grandmother because she was the only number in my phone that didn't belong to someone who'd already left. She didn't ask questions on the phone. She asked what corner I was on. When her car pulled up, there was a man in the passenger seat I didn't recognize, a leather folder open on his lap. Already speaking into a phone wedged against his shoulder. My grandmother stepped out in her church coat, the wool one with the mismatched button, and put her hand on the back of my neck the way she used to when I was small and sick. I've been sitting here how long? I don't know, a while. She didn't say anything about my father. Not then. She opened the car door for me like it was the most ordinary thing in the world, and the man with the folder kept talking numbers into the phone. Account numbers, dates, something about a power of attorney that had never been revoked because nobody had thought to revoke it. I found out later that she'd done this before. Not for me, for her own daughter, decades earlier, in a different city, with a different man who'd also decided one day that a woman and her child had become inconvenient. She never told me the whole story, just that she'd learned once what it cost to wait too long to act and had promised herself she wouldn't watch it happen twice without a lawyer already in the car. I want to say I felt vindicated sitting in her kitchen that night while men in gray suits made calls I didn't understand. Mostly I felt ashamed, not of him, of myself, for the 4 hours I'd spent on that bench convincing myself he'd turn around. For the version of me that still checked the driveway out of habit for a week after, the way you keep glancing at a phantom limb, the accounts were frozen before he landed. The house, his house, technically hers too now, though her name had only been on the deed 11 months, sat quiet and half-packed. The movers my grandmother hired working fast and without comment, boxing up decades of a life that hadn't decided yet whether it wanted to be remembered or erased. I wasn't there when he came back. I heard about it secondhand, the way you hear about weather in another country, true but distant. A neighbor told my grandmother's lawyer that my father had stood in the driveway for a long time before going inside, the way a man stands in front of a house fire deciding whether there's still something worth running in for. Inside, empty rooms, frozen accounts. A note, if you could call it that, from the lawyers, entirely without emotion, entirely without cruelty. Just paper doing what paper does. Nobody called to tell me what he said. I didn't ask. What I keep instead is the watch. I found it that first day back in the empty kitchen, and I've carried it since. Not on my wrist, though. On the bottom of a drawer, wound every so often out of some habit I can't fully explain, the way you might water a plant you're not sure is dead. I don't wear it. I'm not ready to decide what it means to wear something a man promised me and then left behind by accident. Some nights I think about deleting his number. My thumb hovers over the screen sometimes, and I let it hover, the way he let me sit on that bench and told myself I'd move eventually. I haven't deleted it. I haven't called it either. My grandmother says healing isn't a door you walk through once. She says it's a hallway, and some days you're closer to one end than the other. That's fine, that's allowed. She says this while she winds her own watch, an older one, gold-plated and worn smooth at the clasp, the twin of the one I keep in my drawer, the one she gave my mother once, long before I existed, in a hallway of her own. I don't know yet what I'll do with mine. Some mornings I take it out, turn it in the light so the crack in the crystal catches, and I think, not yet, not today, but I keep winding it. That has to mean something.